Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar, the 10 attitudes of outstanding product owners. I see there are already some people here. So I hope that today can share something relevant for you and you can apply in your scenario. We'll share some stories. Let's see how you enjoy the webinar of today. So I will start sharing my screen here and ask you some questions. I want to get to know what are your expectations of today and so on. I see already some more people joining. So let me just share here. So today, actually, I'm going to share some stories with you, some things that I've lived in my experience as a product owner in different scenarios, and also some traps that I have fallen into and what I have learned from that. And I hope that you can get some insights from it and also apply into your scenario. So I think we can just wait for some minutes for some more people just to come in here. Then meanwhile, I would just ask the ones who are here already to share some information, like what do you do and what do you expect from the webinar today? Because once I get to know your expectations, it will be easier for me to share something relevant for you, because this webinar is for you. So it's important to know what would you be curious about. Some time ago, I wrote an article exactly with this name, and after the feedback and a lot of comments on LinkedIn, also on Medium, I decided to create a webinar sharing more stories about the attitudes product owners need to excel in their career. Because the truth is, it's hard. It's really hard. When we learn what a product owner is, and then when we start working with that, we realize the road is a little bit different. And what we are supposed to do, we are not always empowered to do so. But still, people expect us to deliver value and to lead teams in this direction. And what can we do if the environment is not allowing us to do so? The question is, what is on our side? And this is what we should focus on. Seems that the comments are not happening here. So I'm not sure if you are able to comment. This, I suppose that everyone could put the comments here, but I'm not seeing anything for now. Let me just double check here if something happened on the YouTube before we just start sharing the experience here. So I'm just quickly checking here on YouTube if something happened with the comments, because it is supposed for you to be able to comment here. Well, I can see now. I see Edwin here. Okay, your product owner and you expect from this webinar to learn what kind of social traits could be helpful in everyday business. Okay, I think I will approach something like this, and I hope I will get to some answer to you. I see also Nuno here. I'm a BA, PO most of the time. I'm like a proxy PO. I expect to learn something new to apply when I can take the leap as an outstanding product owner. Yeah, I guess I will give also some information about this. At Virtual Identity, I also work as a proxy PO, and I will share some insights on these as well. And thanks for being here, Nuno. You've been in almost all of my webinars and course, so that's great. Okay, so now let's just start sharing here the presentation. What I will do today, I will share some information on the presentation here, but I don't want these to be like a monologue. I want you to participate. So whenever you have questions, just write it down, and we will have some stops between, because I don't want this to be massive. I want to be interactive. I will start sharing some information about me, and then we'll go through the 10 attitudes. And I will share some cases. It will not be just the attitudes and so on. I will share some things where these attitudes help me. So let me start here. I guess some of you know me already. I'm David Pereira. Currently, I am the head of product management at Virtual Identity, and I have 10 years of experience with product management. I worked in different scenarios, from startups of like 30 people until like big corporations of 100,000 people. I've been product owners in many different situations, since from marketplace and also B2B, and even the public sector. So I have learned a lot of different things, and I have failed many times. And this is what I write in most of the time, and I share my experience in the hope that someone can benefit from it. And I'm a writer and an editor at Serious Scrum. I write generally once a week, and since last year, I have published for now 130 articles, I guess. And I'm a very curious person, so that's who I am. And I try to learn from everyone, and this is what motivates me the most. And I believe everyone has something to share, and no one is too good that has nothing to learn. And today I want to do something different, because most of all of my webinars I was alone here speaking, and I missed some of the questions. But today I brought a friend of mine, a colleague from Virtual Identity, and I will just add her here to introduce herself. She will help us here during this webinar.
Hi, David. Hi, yeah, I'm Franziska. I'm David's colleague at BI. I'm a client partner here, and I've had sort of kind of experience in big companies. I worked in corporate communications, marketing, and employer branding, and then went to the other side to a digital agency. And I'm happy to help you today, David, with the questions and discussing this topic.
Thank you. Thank you. So we will do like this. I will run the presentation, and Francie will help collecting the questions. And every now and then we will stop and then answer some questions and then continue. So please write what you are curious about as I share some things here. Now let's go to the part you are waiting for. Hope so. I'm gonna go back here to the presentation, and then we will go from this. Now I'd like to start with the first one, differentiation before execution. You know, many times the question is, what can we do better than our competition? And I don't like this question. It's not about what we can do better. It's like, what can we do different? And product owners, if we try to compete with everyone, well, in a market is a very crowded market, it will not give us the space to succeed. So in my opinion, it's not about beating the competition, but doing different. And what do I mean by that? I mean, we should start asking the question, how can we differentiate? And it's important to know with whom we are competing. But it's also important to know what people are missing. When you look at the product that you are competing with, what do people miss? Ask them. Don't just assume things. You should start thinking, what are the possibilities? And then you strive for differentiation. And you don't need to solve all the problems at once. You can start by doing something different, and what you could focus on. That is a question that you should ask. And here, differentiation is really important. And I will share a case with you in one of the places I worked for. But I would like to take this quote here from the Blue Ocean Strategy. Differentiating is stronger than competing. And this is something that is often ignored. We fall very easily into the competing mode. We look at the competition and then we start asking, oh, what are they doing? Oh, we need to implement this feature because they have implemented. Oh, they are doing something like this and we need to do the same, but a little better. Oh, then we are just doing the same. and we will not be able to differentiate. And the story I want to share with you is about selling wine in Brazil. And selling wine in Brazil is something quite funny because Brazilians don't really like wine in general. Wine in Brazil seems like something expensive and it's for elite people and so on. And Brazilians like to drink beer. And one of the startups I worked, they wanted to spread the love for wine in Brazil. There was an opportunity though, because in Brazil, for example, the average the average consumption of wine is 1.5 bottle per person, but it's a country with 200 million people. In comparison, France is 60 bottle of wines per person. Can you imagine that? This is insane. But there was something different there that I want to share with you. What was the situation? There was already a way of buying wine online in Brazil. And the competition was really well established. Wine.com.br had more than 75% of the market share. And Brazilians, well, they don't like wine, as I said. How can we compete? And the question was not how can we compete? The startup decided to do different. And what was the differentiation? Brazilians don't like wine. They perceive this as expensive. What is wine doing? Wine.com is selling famous labels from famous place. So, for example, they buy famous labels from Bordeaux, famous labels from Valdepeñas and from Sicilia and so on, and bring that to Brazil. But then the challenge is, how can we do different? What if, the question was, what if we could buy wine from this region, but instead of buying the famous label, we could buy the unknown ones. They would be cheap, and people could buy that. We had an assumption. People could enjoy Bordeaux wine, even if it was not a famous label. They could enjoy Valdepeñas wine. And we decided to give it a try. And the result was amazing. Brazilians started drinking more wine, and the company could reach the mission of spreading the wine love all over Brazil. And what happened is, in 4 years, Evino became the biggest online wine shop in Brazil. So it was not by competing, it was by differentiating. So that is one case that I show to you about differentiation. And I guess Francie has something to say about it. I think.
I actually have a question, David. You said in general that differentiation comes over execution, but it happens so fastly to fall into this execution mode. Do you have any tips or hints from your work how to get out of this trap?
Yeah, I have. I think everything starts by why are we doing that? And we need to understand why are we executing? Why? What do we want to achieve by doing so? Because if we come to the answer, we want to beat the competition. I think it's weak. It's like what value can we generate that our competition is not doing? So I think it's by giving ourselves the time.
Having more
So
time for it.
exactly, and this is what is missing quite often. Because we, for example, many companies work with Scrum, and the Scrum we have Sprint, and Sprint it's something like we need to accelerate, we need to be fast, but fast doesn't mean better. And to do the right thing, we should give ourselves time to find what the right thing is. It's like when there's a quote saying, if you would ask um, a woodman like, how you have 5 minutes to chop down a tree, what would you do? He would say, I would take 2.5 minutes just sharpening my accent. So don't jump to execution. Think about, prepare yourself, and then do the right thing. That's what I believe to be the right approach.
Thanks.
Okay. So people, don't be shy. If you have questions, just write it down. But I will just continue here sharing. Maybe after this, we won't be so shy, and then you share something more. Okay, so now we talked about a Vino case. Let's jump into some more possibilities here. And when we look at this, focus on problems worth solving. So for me, this is the second attitude, I would say, because it is something interesting. Not all problems are worth solving, you know? A lot said product people should be problem solvers. And I agree to that up to a certain point, as long as we don't care about all problems. Because here, it's not about solving everything. It's about defining which problems are worthwhile solving. We need to carefully search for them and identify this. It's not so easy. For me, I have like three questions I like exploring before defining it. If it is a problem we should pursue solving or something we should just ignore. The first question I like asking is this one: does the customer care about it? Because if we want to solve a problem that the customer doesn't care about it, why do we even bother? That is the question I ask myself. Does it make sense? Should we do something like this? And then if the customer cares, we need to think still about another thing. Can we solve the customer pain? Is it something that our product can provide value to the customer? And if we find the answer, yes, we can do that. Now it comes a third question I like exploring. That is, does it generate business value? Well, here we can do some trade-offs. Because, for example, if we still find it doesn't generate business value, but it could potentially make our customers happier, then why not? We could treat that as an investment for building a stronger relationship. But the point is being conscious about these three spheres. Does the customer care about it? Can we solve with our technology? Does it generate business value? And the words business value, it is fuzzy, you know, because it can lead to different understanding. Business value is not only money in the bank. Business value can be, for example, increase the customer engagement, increase also the customer loyalty. It can be also getting the customer data to be able later to recommend products. Business value is something that will lead to a more sustainable business. So this is how we should treat business value. But I would say if one of the first questions we have a no, so it doesn't make sense to solve this problem. Let's leave it for later. Actually, not even leave it for later. Let's just skip this problem. But more often than we imagine, we fall into the problem solver trap. We want to solve everything. Whenever we find a problem, we want to solve. I think we should be more mindful about it. And this is what I connect a lot to Steve Jobs. Because take a look at this quote here. Steve Jobs says, people think focus means saying yes to the thing you've got to focus on, but that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the 100 other good ideas that there are. You have to pick carefully. And I connect this to problems. You have to pick carefully what you are going to solve. And then you solve it the right way. I'm seeing already here some comments. And I will just add friends again here. Let's see.
I just wanted to let you know, yeah, there are some comments, and maybe you want to get into those first. And I would have another question too, actually. I'm really curious. So Eppen was telling us that he was once copied by someone.
Okay. So let's see here. For me, it was once the other way around. Once a competitor copied us by mirroring the same feature we recently. Well, that happens. So some competitors, they just want to mirror. They don't want to be behind. So this is something funny that happens. But what was the result of that? Maybe you could also share that with us.
Yeah. And Rishi, I hope I pronounced it right, said he wanted more in a positive way, that not just being different just for the sake of it.
Yeah, exactly. Because this is what I said. Differentiation, it's something that we want to be different for the sake of generating value that to explore something that generates value, to make the lives of people better, to differentiate. That is what helps us doing. Because if we want to do more or less the same, so it's not really funny.
And Nuno also has a question for concerning about users. What do you prefer, interviews or shadow techniques?
Well, this is the answer. The answer I don't like. It depends. But I like more shadowing techniques because you can observe. Interviews, they are good, but a combination would be better. Because the thing is, you need to observe the users in their natural environment. Because interview is something more controlled, you can get to know some things. It is a starting point. But when you shadow the user, you can see the real scenario, how the users react to things. So I think this generates more insights than just asking the questions.
And Edwin replied to your question, David.
Okay, let's read here. Because our competitor mirrored us, it was a good learning for us, actually, that helped us to communicate to management that copying is not always a good idea. That was a good thing. Thanks for sharing, Adam.
David, I had the question, and as Steve Jobs is saying, there are 100 other good ideas. How can we sort? Do you have any sorting techniques? Because that's what I experience in a lot of projects. There are hundreds of problems or ideas coming up. How do you sort?
Yeah. In combination to what I shared, asking the questions, does the customer care about it? Can we solve it technically? Does it generate business value? I would say we filter this out, we get to these ideas, then I like understanding how probable the impact is and how complex it's to implement. So I put in a matrix of complexity of implementation and the business value generation. Then we can understand, like, does it worth investing this time at all, or is it not? And the truth is, we don't know about the impact. So the faster we test the idea and we validate our assumptions, the better. So I like putting in a matrix and then give it a try and learn as fast as we can.
Any other questions? Nuno says he prefers shadowing as well.
Thanks for sharing. Good. So if you don't have more questions for now, I will just continue here, but just keep it writing, and then soon I come back here to your questions. So what would be then the third attitude? This is one I like a lot: strategy versus roadmap. A lot of people have asked me, how do I shape a roadmap? Well, I like shaping roadmaps, but something has to come first. It's not about how to get somewhere. It's first about defining where somewhere is. So it's like we need first to have a strategy and define where we want to be. And for example, what I see quite often is a very well defined roadmap. What needs to be done by when? And what I mean is why. And what I mean is also how that is important to our business model. And then it happens that there is no business model. So actually, we are just defining the roadmap for the sake of defining. And what I see is like, without a strategy, we cannot be sure we are getting somewhere. So it's important to define a strategy, then we can come with a roadmap. And here I like saying something from a former Brazilian president. She said, we don't have a goal, but once we get there, we will double the goal. Whatever that she meant is what I feel with many product teams, including what I did many times in my life and other companies. What happened is the focus on the features lead us to deliver features, but the focus on outcome lead us to discovery, to understand what matters. But first, we need to have the strategy for that. And when I think here, what do we want to achieve in a given time? We should think where we want to be, and then we can think about the road and how we get there, but not before. If we try before, we will be surprised. by a lot of confusion, because everything will be arguably priority. And that is the reason I say don't talk about features without knowing the goal. I know people will just pressure you to talk about features and estimation and work on these and so on. But it's our role as a product owner, product manager, whatever the title is, to clarify why that matters. And if we don't understand that, then we are not ready to implement. And I used this quote before here. I said, if you ask a woodman how long would he ask, what would he do if he had 5 minutes to chop down the tree? So that is the thing. Use half of your time thinking, sharpening your understanding of the problem. Then you can nail down the problem, but not before. And if you try before, it won't lead us to the result we expect. And continue here. The fourth attitude for me is this: start with why. First why, then what. It's kind of obvious, but that's not what happens. And I think start with why has different flavors and different moments. We can think on the moment of talking to the stakeholders and understanding the requests, and we can also think in the moment of communicating, for example, with developers and so on. Looking at this perspective of communicating with developers, once a developer came to me and said, I really like what you bring us to develop. The only thing is, I have no idea why that is important. I feel like we are just building cool features for the sake of building it. And actually, I don't come to work to code for the sake of coding. I come to work to solve problems. Maybe you could tell me why is that important? That was shocking for me. I was speechless. And I thought, oh my God, it was big. I am a big problem. So I need to start with why instead of bringing features to build. So starting with why is about being curious. When you are talking with stakeholders, they may bring you a lot of what. So I need this feature, I need this recommendation program, I need this new search engine, I need this new page. Then you should go to what for, and then you can come to the why. And the thing is, if we don't ask this, we fall into the execution mode. And that is the reason understanding the background is really important, because we need to communicate that clearly with developers, because developers, they won't be committed to any kind of solution if they don't know why that is important. They will not even find solutions for the problems we bring them if they don't understand why it's important to solve that specific problems. Because sometimes we can bring solutions, and developers will say, you're bringing me a solution instead of a problem. They will be frustrated on this level. But then we say, okay, I'm going to bring the problem. And then you bring the problem. Developers will say, okay, I understand the problem, but I don't know why we should solve. So starting with why will help people connect to the problem, and then they will be open to continue working on it. And we should be on the mindset solving problem instead of creating more. Because if we fall into the execution, we may ignore things, and we may ignore the impact of just implementing features. But once we keep asking questions, what is that for? Why is that important? We will get to the root cause of the problem, or to the real point of the opportunity. And looking at this quote here from Robert Ingersoll, progress is born of doubt and inquiry. So we should ask as many questions as we can, and then we can understand the problems we want to solve. And this is really connected to the fifth attitude I want to share: speed the learning process. It's kind of obvious. The faster we learn, the faster we can succeed. But it's also hard to do that, because we believe we know what is best for the product. Stakeholders believe they know what their customers want. And then we forget about learning and we jump into implementing. If this is the case, don't be surprised when the customers look at you and say, wow, that's exactly what I don't need. And I like starting by asking this question: what do we know? And by asking what do we know, we will understand what we know by observations. What can we see and we can prove by observations? Then we understand the scenario. But then we should also ask, what don't we know? And for what we don't know, we should search for answers. And I will share a case with you soon here to make it clearer. But I also want to connect to the last part. The mindset is embrace learning. This, you should know what you don't know and then strive to get the answers for that. It is like Marty Kagan said, one of the most critical lessons in product is knowing what we don't know. And here I would like to share another case with you. And the case, it is about a company that I worked in Brazil. I shared a similar case sometimes already, and it was a company called Instacar. Simple business model. We helped car owners selling their cars. It is complicated in Brazil to sell the car, and we said, we help you sell your car in 1 hour. You just bring to one of our inspections point, a mechanic will take a couple of pictures, put in a platform, dealers all over Brazil, compete for your car, and then you can decide if you accept the offer or not. At the end, the winning bid will be presented for you. And if you take the offer, you go home by cab. And if you don't pay anything and you just go home with your car. And what happened? What did we know? We knew the following: 80% of the customers rejected our offer. And we also knew if we kept that way, we would run out of cash and our business would just disappear. What else did we know? We knew that customers, they felt offended with most offers. I guess car is like a milestone in our life. We buy a car, at least in Brazil. But like I remember my first car. It took me a while to buy that. And if someone would offer me 50% of the value of the car, I would say, wow, that is an insult. I wouldn't take that seriously. And this is what happened quite often. We were offering 50% of the car value, and customers were really pissed off. We knew that. And we knew that negotiators don't find arguments. They didn't find arguments to convince customers. So we had a lot of problems here. And when we looked at this problem, we had, what can we do? And what don't we know? And what we didn't know is we started like, why are people rejecting their offers? Why are they so offended? And what happens? We realized that, first of all, customers, they had to wait a long time. But how could I know that? I decided to play the role of a customer. I came to one of the inspection points and I tried to sell my car. And the moment I handed my key to the mechanic, I waited and I waited and I waited. And I didn't know anything that was happening. And I could see people pissed off there and so on. And then someone invited me to present the offer. And I said, well, unfortunately today, dealers were not participating in the auction. And well, we have an offer for you here. Negotiators were already telling me, yeah, you're not going to accept. And I was pissed off because I was waiting for 1 hour without any kind of information. And then, of course, when I received an offer of 50% of my car value, I rejected. And what we changed in this process, we start saying we need to provide information to the customers. They need to know what is happening with their cars because they are anxious. And the more anxious they get, the angrier they get, and the less is the chance of accepting the offer. And then we provided solutions for this. But we also we realized that our auctions are not competitive enough. We need to solve this problem. And for that, I visited the dealers and understood what was important for them, and we changed our system to be relevant for the dealers. But we could only do that by embrace learning. And I tried to walk a mile in the customer's shoes. I tried to walk a mile in the dealer's shoes. And then I could understand their pains. And after this moment, we could change this figure of customers reject 80% of the offers. We could change it to 40%, which is a massive improvement. But the secret was start by being curious, start by embracing learning. And then it comes another one that is really connected. It's the needs versus requests. Well, we often receive requests, and requests, they come like with wants. And if we don't know the need behind the wants, we may implement different things. And the trap is what stakeholders want often are not related to what the customers need. And if we fall in this trap, we, we may deliver something that is irrelevant. And that is the reason we should evaluate carefully the user requests. Because if we don't do that, well, surprise are ahead of us. And it is connected to understand the why. So here is understanding the need is like being an investigator, being a curious person and asking questions and sometimes shadowing the customer, sometimes looking for answers, but not only with questions. For this, I will also share one case with you that is really curious, and I hope it will give you some more concreteness to this one. Because what we want is this. Needs versus request is to identify the underlying problem, something that is hidden. It's not said. People cannot say that to you, but you have to understand. And here is something like Melissa Perry said. It is not the customer's job to solve their own problems. It is your job to ask them the right questions. So let me share you something here that happened with a customer service case in one of the e-commerce I worked. The customer service came to me and said this kind of sentence here. We have too many requests. Our system is inefficient. We cannot reply to all requests on time. And then they look at me, we need a better system. We need a more efficient one. The way the tickets are organized here, they are irrelevant and we cannot work with this. We need to change it and make it better. Well, and then I start asking some more questions. And I said, what kind of tickets do you receive the most? And I said, well, we received everything. And they were really pissed off because they were under stress, high stress, I would say. And then we start talking. And I got to know that most of the requests were related to the delivery time. And they said, well, we need to tell the customers their package is late and then they will be pissed off. We need to give them like some voucher to ensure we don't lose our customers. And I said, but why do we have too many problems with delivery time? Customer said, I don't know. I just received this so often. I said, okay, let me investigate. I said, I'm going to talk to logistic. And I went there and I said, did you know that 70% of customer service requests is about delivery time? Because they buy something, it's supposed to be delivered in 3 days, and they get the package generally in 7 days. The logistic guy looked at me. I know this problem. And I told the guys from category management it was a bad decision to fake the delivery time. We wanted to get more sales, and I told them we cannot make this on this time. We need 7 days. And then that is what's happening. I said, okay. So the problem actually is not that customer service has a slow system. It's that a bad decision led to a lot of problems, and then customer service was overloaded. So that was a problem. We didn't need to build any better system. We needed to solve a bad decision. So see, we need to be an investigator and understand, had we built a better system, the problem of delivery time would have remained. And the outcome of this was category management had a goal of increasing the sales dramatically, and they didn't know how to do that. And their decision was to reduce the delivery time because customers were complaining that our delivery time was too long. And I said, maybe if we reduce that, customers would buy more. Yeah, they bought more, but then we lost a lot of customers. So let's stop a little bit here for questions. I will see here if some people have more questions. And also
Yes.
Francis. Yep.
Yes, there are. Nuno had two questions. One regarding if you have any preferred approaches, how to assess business value. And he also struggles with roadmaps, but maybe we go into this one first.
Okay, assessing business value is always a question. And this is something like you should understand what business value is, and then you can define how to measure. Let's say I like looking at leading metrics because many times we fall into lagging metrics. What is a lagging metric? If you think of sales, well, increasing sales, this is too far already on the conversion funnel, right? Because the customer needs to arrive on your website, for example, and then add a product to cart, and then go to this checkout and so on. So this would be a lagging metric. It's too long to define. And then I would ask the question, what does lead to sales? And then define the KPIs for that and start measuring. So this is how I prefer business value. Start with the end in mind, define the lagging metric, the most important, and then the leading ones. So that's the approach I like taking.
Michalina has another question. What was the name of the approach with the customer service case, David?
The name of the approach? That is the thing. Actually, I think that was curiosity because I'm a very annoying person. I started just asking questions and I wanted to understand their problem. So they said they were overloaded. I said, why are you overloaded? They said, we have too many requests. And I said, what kind of requests do you have? And then I wanted to know, I wanted to see the data and understand better. I would call this as a problem framing, problem understanding.
And
Hope it
Nuno
helps.
had another question. He struggles with roadmap. Maybe we can go into this one.
Yeah. I struggle with roadmaps because sponsors prefer to have detail of current stories, but also for stories for future months. So he could have a clear view on where we were. Yeah, this is always a challenge, you know. It's hard to move from a traditional scenario to a totally agile one. And I think it's important to start with the next step. And I think generally the next step for a transformation would be defining a product goal, something bigger, and then you can define the stories related to the product goal. And this is a challenge with, for me, meaningful roadmaps are OKRs. Leadership would define the objective we want to achieve, and the teams, in collaboration with the leadership, would define the key results we can achieve for the objective. If we can get to that, then we have the room we need for learning. If we cannot get to that, I would say, can we at least agree on a product goal and then ensure that everything is related to this? And if not, then it's like Steve Jobs said, you don't hire smart people to tell them what to do. You hire them to tell us what to do.
I found the example very interesting, David, with the customer service case. Do you have maybe another example where this happened, that you had a request which was not actually the user need?
I have. That led to a fuck up. So what happened was, it was still in Brazil. A business analyst came to me and said, oh my God, I struggle a lot with these files here. We had to consolidate too many files because the business was like this. We had promoters all over Brazil, and some of these promoters were training the merchandisers and the store how to sell merchandise and so on. And they had like everything in Excel files. And the business analysts, they had to consolidate that to give back to the client the reports. And everyone did differently. And they said, we struggle quite a lot. He said, what if we could have an online system for this and blah, blah, and then I would have everything in one place. I could generate reports in a blink of an eye. And then I was fascinated by the request. And then we went down implementing a solution for this. We called as the online training portal and everything, and we developed that. Then when we finished, we presented to the instructors. The instructor said, solution is amazing. I really like that. I have only one question. How do I do that inside the airplane? Because that's the moment I have to fill the form. And then I said, it's an online solution. So we built the wrong solution because we focus on the wrong user.
There you go. So be curious first, right?
Yes, have to be curious first. So that is always a challenge. Good. So I think I will continue here and then we'll get to some more questions. Let's go back here. So now let's come to the 7th. We have here priority versus deadline. Oh, this is something. It always come a request with a priority. We have to deliver this by then. We have no choice, but we need to match the deadline. Well, I don't like that. And most of the deadlines, they are just arbitrary. Someone has some gut feeling we need to do that by then. Okay, there are some deadlines that are related to laws and so on, but generally you have time for that. But most of the others are just arbitrary, and we should focus on the outcome. And what I see is when we start treating things with deadlines, we start treating products as projects, and product is not a project. A project has a beginning and an end, clear. A product is something that it is always uh, going through a cycle and becoming better, delivering more value for the end users, for the business. But if we treat that as a project with a deadline, well, we may miss the point. We may accept ordinary solutions. We may accept things that don't deliver the value that we could deliver if we focus on the outcome instead of matching an arbitrary deadline. And this is what I said here about deadlines being often arbitrary. What I think is we shouldn't define a deadline. We should define like how much do we want to invest in an initiative, and then we use that and we invest and we realize if we could deliver the result or not. And then we should ask the question: should we keep investing on this or not? But everything should start by defining how much do we want to invest instead of defining by when do we want that. Because if we don't accept our lack of knowledge, we will fail to embrace learning. And the main part of any agile framework is empiricism. We need to embrace learning. The more we walk, the more we know. And once we fail to do that, we will not reach any success, only suboptimal results. And this is the reason I say instead of focus on the deadlines, we should focus on the objectives. And this is what is more important. If you want a good example for that, you should search for Valve. They generally miss the deadlines, and they missed the deadline of Half-Life, one of their most successful games, by 2 years. Yet, it is one of the best products they have ever made, and they made a lot of profit from that. But they missed the deadline by 2 years. But they focus on the objective in building a great game. Now, let's have a look at the eighth. I call this happiness versus alignment. The role of a product person is not to make the stakeholders happy, it's to deliver value for the business and for the end user. But sometimes we fall into a trap and we try to please everyone and then we please no one. And I think this is a big mistake. Once we focus on the happiness, we need to try to please everyone and we try to do a little bit of everything and then we end up doing nothing meaningful. And here is my first point. Outstanding product owners don't please everyone. We make agreements. And this is what I would say it is important to avoid consensus because when we are talking about stakeholders, it's a constant trap. If we want to reach consensus, it will take us the whole life to do that. You have to talk to, I don't know, 3 gazillions of people. You need to talk to really a lot of people. And to reach consensus, you will need to make exchange. Then it will become highly opinionated. Someone will say, I can agree to that if you remove this. It's like a political thing. If you add this, I can agree. If you remove this, I can agree. That's not the point. The point is striving for commitment. And we want stakeholders to commit to the goal. We don't need to agree with everything. We need to commit to the goal. So that is the reason I said we set a product goal and then we pursue that. And stakeholders will say, I want this. And then I will say, how does that help us achieving the product goal? And if it doesn't help, it means it's not for now. It is not even for us to keep for later. Once we define the product goal, that is where I focus. And here is like looking at SpaceX. I gave this example a lot of times. Product vision, populate Mars. What would be a product goal? Build a reusable rocket, and then put all the efforts on that. Everything that doesn't contribute to this, you don't focus on this. But focus on the commitment. And then stakeholders, they should understand why you are saying no to them. And then they will commit. But it's not about pleasing them. And this is like what Jeff Patton said. Design by community is not designed by committee. Design is never democratic. And it's like the same in product management. It is not about being democratic. It's about doing what is right for the product. I see here some other question. Maybe we could just continue here with some other things before I go to the 8th and 9th attitude.
Juliana supported something you said with the why. I don't see here.
Understand why can help you do your job much better. Yeah, sure. If we understand the why, it helps us doing the job much better. And it's also connected to the stakeholders. If they understand why you made the decision of not prioritizing what they want, they will commit. And it's fine. You need to make them understand the why.
Since there's no question, I have one, David, which I struggled a lot with in further projects. Stakeholder management can be really difficult depending on the company where you're in. Do you have any tips or tricks how to do this better?
Yeah.
To sort them, how to work with them?
Yeah, I have an idea. And for me, it's like we cannot put all stakeholders in the same bucket. They are different. And for me, we need to somehow define where they are. And I like looking in a metrics of two things. First, how powerful they are. Because some stakeholders, they are powerful. They have a lot of influence. Some are not. But also how interested they are in the work you are doing. Because here you see some things. Some stakeholders, they have no power at all, but they are very interested and they may start pushing you towards something they want. But these ones are the one you should avoid, because if it is conflicting to the ones who are powerful and also are interested, here are the guys that you should engage and keep them close. And then there are the ones who are powerful, not so interested. You should keep them informed, because if you do something that is not connected to what they believe, you have a problem with them. Keep them informed. The ones that are not powerful and also not interested, just keep them out. Keep them out. So that is what I do. And I think it helps focusing with whom you should talk to and how you should talk to them. And that helps setting clear expectations.
Thanks. And Diane has a question.
Diane, okay. So fantastic webinar. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed. What do you recommend for case where the goal is totally financial? E.g., our goal is not a tangible goal like create a rocket, but more like reaching a particular revenue number. I had a goal like that already. It was something like the objective is reach break even, really financial. And then we said, what do we need to do to get there? And then if a revenue number, it's similar. Revenue is a little bit abstract because you can reach revenue if you buy traffic, for example, if it is an online platform. The question is, how can you reach that sustainably? But I would say, what are the key results that would get us to the revenue we want? And then focus on initiatives to reach these key results. That would be my suggestion. Hope that helps.
And Vishesh also had another question. How shall we proceed in situations when you have to keep the stakeholders along with the customer's requirements in check?
And let me see if I understand here. How should, in situations when you have to keep the stakeholders along with customer requirements? I didn't quite understand what do you mean by keeping the along with requirements in check. Could you clarify what do you mean exactly? I think I didn't really understand the question.
Maybe we'll wait.
Yeah, maybe I'll continue and then you can write down and then I can just answer here. Okay, but just rephrase it and then I can understand and answer. Okay, so the ninth one, Life is about opinions. So we should be careful with this because, it's sometimes some people just bring us here opinions and we need to follow them. But we need to understand what they know. Sometimes CEOs just come and say, you need to do that by them. And I receive that a lot. But the question is, first, the question is, what do they know that we don't know? That is what we need to understand. So that's the reason I say be careful with opinions. Don't follow the request blindly, because if you do that, wow, that can really surprise you. Because it doesn't mean that someone asks you to do something that you should do. You should first understand what do they know and that you don't. You shouldn't be just an order taker, just receiving the orders and just implementing. That's the reason opinions, they don't help a lot. Observations, they do. Knowledge, they do. So that is what I suggest. You can, for example, just come to the stakeholders and say, why do you think like that? What kind of observations do you have? Could you help me understand that? Have you talked to some customers? Try to get more to the knowledge, and then you understand if it's an opinion or not. And if it's an opinion from, I would say, a relevant person like the CEO, you say, okay, how can we prove that? So try to validate the assumption before jumping to execution. And it is also about leadership. And for me, it's like Simon Sinek said, the role of a leader is not to come up with all the great ideas. The role of a leader is to create an environment in which great ideas can happen. So this is the thing that we need to think more often, like prepare the environment. It's not just bringing ideas into place, it's to prepare an environment to allow ideas to flourish. And for this, I will share one of the case I had. It was also at Instacarro. It's connected to the previous problem. And when I started at Instacarro, this company, the challenge was people didn't use our app. And unfortunately, the CEO just told me the following: by the end of the quarter, I want you to increase the dealer's engagement by 30%. I don't want excuse. I want that done. And then I was, oh, okay, what does he want? And for me, it was like just giving something to achieve. And then I tried to read between the lines. And when he mentioned the engagement, I thought he wants engagement. It doesn't matter where it is. The dealer's app is just a solution. And he said something like this also: the world is mobile. Dealers have to get used to this. We cannot just push solutions to our users. Users need to use something that is natural for them. It doesn't matter if it's natural for us, as long as it's natural for it's not natural for the user, they will not use it. And how did we solve this problem? By empathizing with the dealers, by understand what was their problem. The CEO had a strong opinion. He had the opinion the world had to be mobile and dealers had to adapt to that. And when I got to visit these dealers, I realized actually they didn't buy cars from mobile and they hated that. They were looking into online platforms. And the solution was to change that. So if we were if we stick to the opinion, we wouldn't be able to succeed. We succeeded by pivoting the solution and using an online platform. So don't stick to the opinion, validate assumptions before you jump into execution. That is my tip here. And now we get to the last one. The last one is connected to this: rational versus natural. When you are implementing a solution, if you look to your solution, how is it? Is it rational for the user or is it natural? If it's rational, the users may use if they think it generates a lot of value, but they still need to adapt to that. But if it's natural, they will just use because it is natural for them. So this is something it is often ignored. We look at this, oh, it makes sense, it's rational, but we forget asking if it is natural. So the point is, solving a problem, it is not enough. And we think it is because we think, wow, as long as it's understandable, it is enough. But my perception is rational is a suboptimal alternative. And that's not going to help us. Not going to help us achieve our best possible result. But if we go to what is natural, that will delight users. But then it will come something. How expensive is to do that? I can already hear some CEOs saying, "Oh, this is too expensive. Design is really expensive to do that. We need to invest in user research. We need to invest in design." And so, oh my God, that will take a lot of time. But then I would connect here to this quote here. If you think good design is expensive, you should look at the cost of bad design. So that's the mindset we should have. Don't judge design as something expensive. We should understand the impacts of a bad one. So, yeah, this is what I had to share with you today. I will open again for questions. We just add Francie here. I hope you have enjoyed what I shared. These 10 attitudes. You can also find these. You can find this article. If you want to get this presentation, you can get it. Just write to me on LinkedIn, and I will share with you. And if you want more content like this, you can subscribe to the channel. You can keep on it and add me on LinkedIn, and then you get more. But for now, what other questions do you have before we finish? We are a little bit over time, but we can continue here.
There are 2 comments from Edwin regarding opinions.
This one, I know this person. Actually, this animal, the hippo. Yeah, the hippo is something quite challenging, and it happens quite often. The prioritization is done by this animal, the highest paid person opinion. And we need to escape from that. As a product person, we need to help people escaping from that. It's not easy, but we have to go into conflicts. That is the only alternative I see.
No more other comments?
I have another one. Or a lot of experience, and this is why opinions have to be good, right? Well, without that, this is often just yeah, exactly. We need general opinions are just opinions, and I'm not so picky about data, but I'm picky about some evidence. So what evidence do you have? What observation and something like this? Data is great, but it's not always available. Imagine something you want to implement that is it's new, then you don't have data, but you may have some evidence that makes sense.
Maybe there's great summary.
Thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed. I hope everyone has enjoyed, and I hope you have at least some takeaways from these, and you can apply in your scenario. That is the motivation I have to do these kind of webinars, to help people escape from the traps I've fallen into.
Maybe I have one last question, David. From all those 10 attitudes, which one would you tackle first, or what do you think is most important?
A differentiation before execution. For me, that is the most important. Because if we forget to differentiate, whatever we do, we are just competing. And then I think we fall into the bloody red ocean, and then we have little chance of thriving.
That's a good point to the end.
Okay, then if we don't have more questions, I will just conclude here. You can rewatch this. It will be available on my YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you want the presentation, just write it to me. I saw your question, Edwin. Is there an 11th secret attitude? No, I think we can stick actually to these ones. There might be a lot of more attitudes. I could bring a lot of attitudes. For example, I will give one secret here for you. Put a due date in your backlog items. Ensure that you don't let your items rot in the backlog. Kill the old and leave space for the new. Okay, thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks, Francie, for helping me with the webinar.
Thanks, that was fun, David. I learned a lot too.
Great. See you next time.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.